What are you like inside of your head? That's a question a young person that I was working with a couple years back asked an adult as part of a workshop I was running. What are you like inside of your head? How often do you ask yourself that question? What are you like inside of your head? And do you actually know what are you like inside of your head? I always use that picture. If I can show you it, I'll show you it at the end. I'll share my screen with you and show you. Actually, I've got it here. And I can really show you this picture this young person drew. This was a 15-year-old who drew it at the time. And I thought it's so perfect. Let me show you it. So, what are you like inside of your head? And I think this is really, really powerful. A young person drew this picture a couple years ago when I was in a school doing well-being workshops. This was a 15-year-old. And this young person was asking questions to adults about life. And the workshop, we used to call it Real Talk. And what I used to do, I used to connect young people and adults from different walks of life and have young people ask questions about life to these adults. And a young person asked this question and they drew this picture at the back of the feedback form. When I got back home, I was like, wow, this is so powerful. And I use it at the start of a lot of my workshops. And I think it's really powerful because it gets you really thinking. So if you were to be asked this question right now, what are you like inside your head? How would you respond? Is it like beautiful flowers up in there? Is that roses that are blossoming? Or are you one of those people, up in there, maybe it's a little bit of a maze and you don't know where you're going in that maze? There's so many exits and entries, but you don't know whether you're coming or going. So you're kind of just moving around that maze, hoping to find the right exit, or the right entrance, or whatever it is you're looking for. You're just going in that maze, and you know how mazes can be. Or are you a person who is just, you know, there's kind of like a nothingness in your head. There's just like a nothingness, just like there's like an indifference. Or is it quite self-critical? Are you critical? Do you speak to yourself very kindly, or do you speak to yourself very critical? How are you talking to yourself? What are you saying to yourself on a day-to-day basis? What are you focusing on? Where's your focus? Where's your attention? And the last one, is it like a car crash in there where it's just like complete disaster, like just completely disastrous that you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what's going on. It's like, yeah, you're feeling like, you know what, maybe life is your enemy at the moment and you don't know what to do. So I think that's a really powerful question to ask yourself. So let me know in the comments, let me know what you're saying, and let me know what you would say to that question. What are you like inside of your head, essentially? So, transforming our self talk is something that's really, really, really important. And as individuals, how we talk to ourselves shapes how we're showing up in the world, how we're showing up for ourselves, and how we're showing up for other people. In my last video, I spoke about tell someone something enough times they will believe it. And that also applies to yourself. Tell yourself something enough times, you will believe it. So that question, what are you like inside of your head, is really powerful to start understanding where you are as a person and what that relationships look like with yourself. Again, it's you versus you. And that's the relationship that we have with ourselves. What we're like inside of our head, how we speak to ourselves, is an indication of the relationship that we have with ourselves. And we can have a beautiful relationship with ourselves, or we can essentially have a relationship with ourselves where it's essentially a little bit off, and it's like it's a bit tricky and it's difficult. Like, or we can have a really beautiful relationship with ourselves, that where we understand that we're not perfect, but we're trying and we're showing up for ourselves daily, and we're seeing the little breakthroughs, the breakthroughs that we're going through on a day-to-day basis. So it's just about understanding those things as to what type of relationship do you have with yourself, number one. What are you like inside of your head? Number two. And how are you talking to yourself on a day to day basis? Number three. Sometimes what happens with our self talk is that we're so used to our self talk that sometimes we don't recognize actually how it's affecting us and our day to day life. Again, tell yourself something enough times, you are going to believe it. And what I mean by that is, if you're telling yourself, you know what, you're good enough, you're beautiful, you're worthy, you can do what you want, like you can achieve what you want, you're capable, you're loved, you're cared for. Just speaking to yourself like somebody you care about, somebody you love, like really truly love, someone you're in love with. How many of us can say that, we would truly love ourselves? We truly love who we are. We truly are in love with ourselves. Interesting. And that also, vice versa, can be applied to our life. And just having those conversations and telling yourself, you know what, sometimes you've got to be positive. Sometimes you've got to have that responsibility that, you know what, this is my life and this is, oh, oh sorry. I thought that the mic wasn't on, but I hope it's on and you can hear me. And just, understanding that you are who you are, and your journey is going to be unique to you and different to you. And there's a reason your journey is the way it is, specifically for you as a person. And the way you talk to yourself and the way you're approaching life has a big impact, essentially, into how you kind of manage some of the stuff that happens. And something powerful that my friend said is that when you're going through some of, life's ups and downs or whatever it may be, as you're going through it, it's easy to say, you know what, it's easy to say, I know it's happening for a reason. But when you're going through it, sometimes you can't see like the end of it. So that's where the self-talk comes in, to be able to take responsibility, to be able to pause and gain perspective so you can pivot. But sometimes that can take a while in order for you to get to where you need to get. Because our self-talk, again, we can talk to ourselves in negative ways where, like you feel like I'm not worthy. Somebody told me I was stupid. Like how many of us can go back to, like, when we're in school or during our childhood, where we had an adult or a teacher or somebody we looked up to or cared for that made a comment about their, you know, opinion of how they saw us and perceived us. And some people carried that with them for life through their childhood, adulthood, and it affects them for life. And some people don't have the best of childhoods, and you've got loads of young people who are living in, circumstances and households that are not so great, and that don't impact their well-being and mental health in not so nice ways. Again, sometimes they're seeing things and hearing things about who they are, and again, that can have an impact on our self-talk, where we can become our own worst enemy. And when we become our own worst enemy, we're essentially in a tug and war between ourselves and life, because we're going to see and perceive life that is working against us rather than what life working for us. So a simple way of transforming your self-talk is talking to yourself as a friend, or as you would speak to a friend, and just having compassion for yourself. And what that can look like is just gaining perspective, or pausing, in fact, starting off with pausing that, okay, I'm going through this right now. Instead of maybe berating myself, or feeling like life is against me, it's about just pausing and taking a deep breath, and taking yourself away from the situation and distancing yourself from the situation, so that you gain that perspective. And in order to gain that perspective, you need to start speaking to yourself in kind ways. So instead of saying, you know what, why did you do that? That was so stupid. You'll be like, okay, you made a mistake and that's okay. You can learn something from it, and next time you can do better. Those simple things can make a big difference. Like, okay, why did you take that person back when they wasn't treating you well and they weren't respecting you? You could be like, okay, you are human. We want connection, we want love, and that's something that happens. But for next time, what you've got to do and what you can learn from this situation, by saying, you shouldn't have done that. Sometimes that type of talk doesn't happen. Just like, if you're trying to build a relationship with someone and they're constantly picking at all the negative stuff that they see about you, you're gonna just feel like, oh my god, I'm not valued. I like, this person just sees all my negative stuff. What you want is, you want to at least acknowledge. You can acknowledge the not so nice stuff and the negative stuff, but don't let them overtake you and your being and yourself. You can acknowledge them, you can bring them up, and you can say, okay, what do I need to do to move forward, so that they don't become something that holds you back. You want to actually use those things as a way for you to move forward, and when you do that, you're gaining much more, like, autonomy and more responsibility for yourself and for your life, that, what, I can change my self-talk, I can change my situation, I can change certain aspects of myself and my life and where I need to be, or who I want to be. And it all starts with the stories that we tell ourselves. And the main aspect of that as well is the ability to be able to own your story. What is your story that sometimes maybe you're trying to run away from? A story that you're not trying to address, a story that you're ashamed of. And when you're ashamed, or you're feeling like, a type of way about a story, a situation, or circumstance, or your experiences, it actually has more hold on you as a person, rather than you actually sitting with that, accepting it. Then nobody, not even yourself, can use it against you. And that's you owning up and saying, you standing up and say, you know what, I own this, and this is where I'm at. And one of the other things that we can do is, going by transforming our self-talk, is, you know essentially understanding and making effort and time for you. And I think this is an important aspect that we miss as people. Having things that are for you as a person, make time and effort for you. And that doesn't have to be like a big major thing. It could be just very simple stuff, like, you just sit there for 10 minutes in silence. You go for a walk, and you do things that are going to start helping you to transform that self talk. Something simple could also just be you doing things that make you uncomfortable, things that push you outside of your comfort zone, and things that make you squirm a little in your head. You're like, oh, this is a bit much, right? You just be like, oh gosh, like it's scary. And when stuff is scary, sometimes scary is a good thing. Scary is actually a good thing, and sometimes scary can be your friend. And I remember once when I was like, when I was going through like a heartbreak, and literally the constant talk that was going on in my head, it wasn't nice. Like, it was horrible. It was horrible when you feel like you are not good enough whatsoever. And you feel like everything is like something, not everything. You feel like so many, like, why has this happened to me? I'm in so much pain. I'm hurting. And it's not a nice place. Sometimes you can't even sleep. That's the worst one. You can't sleep because it's on your mind. It's like, oh my God, now it's even taking over my brain. It's taking over my mind because it's like my brain won't shut off. And when you're in those states, you can get into a loop of constant overthinking and going through stuff in your head and thinking over and over and over and over and over again. And all that does is dig yourself a hole, and you keep digging and digging and digging and digging a hole that by the time you look up, you're like 6 foot deep under. Yeah. You're 6 foot under and you're thinking, how did I get here? And then you've got to try climb back up, right? And the climbing back up, that is you transforming your self-talk. Because once you've realized how far down you are, and now you need to climb back up, whether it's a rope, whether it's a step ladder, whether it's whatever, you find your way out, right? If you want to get out, you get out. That's a choice. So if you got yourself in a hole with your self-talk, and the self-talk is not positive, the self-talk is not helping you to move forward, the self-talk is not helping you to treat yourself in a kind way, and the self-talk is not helping you to feel better about yourself and about your life, that's when you're 6 feet under. And what you need to do is you need to start digging. Well, not digging or climbing up. You can't dig anymore. You keep digging, then you keep digging, then it just gets overwhelming. You need to start climbing back up, and you need to take one step at a time. It could be simple stuff. Every day you wake up, you're like, okay, you notice the one little good thing about yourself. You compliment yourself. You notice something that you've done really well. You notice that you've had, like a breakthrough. That's something that's helped you today. Even when you don't feel like doing something, sometimes you do it because you're like, I'm going to show up for myself today. Even though my head and my mind is telling me not to, I'm going to show up for myself today. And that's a choice I'm wanting to make today. And that's a choice I'm making this moment right now. And I want to do this for myself. You have to want to do it. And you have to have that need, because we have needs that need to be met as people. And our self-talk sometimes can help. They can kind of get things muddled up in our head, that we've got needs that need to be met, but then sometimes our self-talk sabotages those needs being met because it's so negative. But and this is where the negative is normal, and it's a natural thing that people do, because as humans we do have to have the negative has more impact on us than the positive. And it's difficult for us sometimes to be able to just see the lights every day. And sometimes it's just about picking one simple thing a day. If you can say every day I'm 1% better than yesterday, if you can say today my self-talk is better than 1% better than yesterday, that's something. That's a breakthrough. And it could be simply just being grateful for who you are, and working and speaking to yourself and challenging that voice when it tells you, you know what, you're not good enough, you're confused, you're lost. And just understanding you're wanting what that self-talk that you want is. What do you want that to look like? If you don't know what that is and you don't know what that looks like, you're not going to be able to fully be able to kind of figure out or start working towards it if you're not quite sure on, you know, what it is exactly that you're wanting. Because sometimes we're kind of a little bit everywhere, we're dotted a bit everywhere, because when our self-talk is a little bit all over the place, or it's not positive and it's not uplifting us, it doesn't help us to be able to gain perspective. Actually, it narrows our perspective. And that goes like with a concept called the broaden and build theory kind of thing. Like, you know, so for example, the more positive self-talk that you have, the more it broadens your perspective, and the more negative self-talk that you have, the more it narrows your perspective. So when you narrow, so imagine like right here, I'm trying to see here, because my hands are here, I can't, my peripheral view is blocked, I can't even see what's going on. But when you're obviously speaking to yourself in a nicer way, look at your, look at the beauty. Now I can see what's going on around me. I've got more perspective. I don't even have to turn. So you gain broader perspective. So having a positive, a self-talk that is one, positive, two, is kind to yourself, three, you have that compassion for yourself and understanding that you're not perfect and you're human, and that's okay. And then three and four, I think I'm on four now, having that, just that simple empathy for yourself. And number five, and being somebody who shows up for themselves every day, even if it's by 1%, right? Show up for yourself, treat yourself like you would to somebody you truly care about, and then start challenging that inner voice that tells you, you know what, things are not going well, whatever it may be. And the more effort that you put into yourself, the more you will see that in return, in abundance, in various areas of your life. There's one thing that's always guaranteed in life. The work you put into yourself will always be guaranteed a return. It doesn't have to be now, tomorrow, 5 years from now. You will be guaranteed something back from the work you put into yourself. And if you wanting to transform yourself, your life, where you're going, and you've got a vision, the first step to be able to do that is to start to recognize, what is the relationship that I have with myself, and what is the self-talk? How do I talk to myself on a day-to-day basis? Am I focusing more on the negative or the positive when it comes to myself and how I speak about myself and how I speak about my life? And then start, okay, if I'm speaking to myself already in a positive way, what can I do in order to enhance that a little bit more? And how can I start applying it into different areas of my life? You may be really good at talking to yourself, a positive self-talk in your head when it comes to your job, because you know you're good at your job, but you may be speaking to yourself in not so nice ways in various other domains of your life. For example, it could be friendships, it could be, you know, relationships, it could be, you know, when it comes to, you know, like your hobbies, or trying to learn a certain skill that you feel like, I've always wanted to learn this skill but I'm not good at it. So your self-talk may be negative. So sometimes you could be really good at talking to yourself in a kind and friendly and in a nice caring way in one area of your life, but other areas you may be quite self-critical. So identifying and mapping yourself, you can probably use like a star method, identifying like different domains of your life and saying, okay, for these domains, how do I speak to myself? For these domains, how do I speak to myself? What are some of the triggers? And what's happening, and why am I doing that? And what is that self-talk looking like? Then you can start putting, you know, little strategies in place as to, when you notice that, what do I need to do to move forward? It could be like, okay, my friendships is an area that I feel like I'm not really connected to my friends. It could be like, okay, maybe I just need to check in on my friends once a week, or I need to check in with my friends a little bit more because I'm a little bit distant. If that's an area you want to focus on, if you feel like, you know, like I feel like I'm all alone, I'm not connected to anybody, like, so it could just be starting to understand the little things that we need to do. A lot of times we know what we need to do, but the difficult is actually taking the steps and challenging those inner, repetitive, recurring thoughts that are the same over and over and over and over and over a day, every day. And that will start to be able to transform your self-talk. So let me know in the comments, what are you like inside of your head? And What is your self-talk like? Is it beautiful? Is it flowers? Is it a maze? Is it a car crash? Or is it just, is it meh? So let me know what it's like up in there. And let me know what helps you. If your self-talk is good, is positive, is amazing, is where you want it to be. And let me know what it is that, maybe if your self-talk is not so great, or you don't feel it was so great, what do you feel it is that you need to do in order to like just make that self-talk 1% better every day? I know. Good night. And good morning, wherever you are.